Hi, I'm Juliana Pino. I'm the Policy Director at the Little Village Environmental Justice Organization. I direct our public policy program. That means I work with communities to develop public policies that respond to problems that they have, whether that means working on new clean energy legislation at the General Assembly, or creating new opportunities in the clean energy economy, or fighting back industry that is polluting communities, and essentially helping communities have a stake in the future of the state.
Hello, my name is Delmar Gillis. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Elevate Energy. In my role as Chief Operating Officer, I support Elevate's operations, but I also spend quite a bit of time focused on workforce development work, such as the Future Energy Jobs Act and our other contractor incubator programs.
The Future Energy Jobs Act was a piece of groundbreaking legislation passed at the end of 2016. It authorized around $750 million of new resources for low-income communities, and that includes everything from expanded energy efficiency programs to new workforce training opportunities that were open to new community opportunities that hadn't existed before. That included for environmental justice communities. Those are communities that have been impacted by environmental harm, as well as folks who had gone through the criminal justice system and had a record and were having trouble accessing job training and jobs. So by targeting those resources, it really expanded the scope of what was possible for solar energy and energy efficiency for communities across the state, as well as dramatically increasing goals for energy efficiency and renewable energy development in Illinois.
What the Clean Energy Jobs Act meant to us as an organization was really an ability to reach out into the community and start to provide access to the clean energy economy. One of the things that we really saw was that as we were out doing our energy efficiency work, often in communities of color, there were severe limitations on the jobs that were being created in the very communities that were doing work. And through the work of the Future Energy Jobs Act and all the legislators, environmental groups, and utilities that supported it, we're now able to take those opportunities directly to the community and engage the community. So one of the things that we're really seeing is a lot of community excitement about the jobs that are being created. But what's also happening is that within the communities, the folks that are working on the jobs that are starting to get into the industry are starting to create their own businesses, grow businesses, and so it's starting to create an economic engine where new jobs and opportunities can be created within the community. So that's really exciting.
It's extremely exciting. I think the important thing to know is that the reason these programs are serving communities in the way that they are is that they came from community members across the state who exerted, we demand to have a stake in the growth of the clean energy economy. Many of us have been impacted adversely by the energy industries in the state, and we would like to see a transformation, to see communities that have been impacted the most driving the changes toward the clean energy future that we all want, that confer public health benefits to everyone, that lower electric bills, that will provide new economic opportunity and to build wealth. A lot of communities of color have been shut out of many economic opportunities, and by specifically concentrating programs with an equity focus, community members are able to really access deep levels of opportunities and to bring their ideas toward the new energy economy development that we're seeing in the state.
Yeah, and I'm really excited because I really want to talk about some of the organizations that have benefited from FEJA. One particular example is Millennium Solar Electric. What they have been able to do, thanks to FEJA, is start a Millennium Solar Electric Training Academy where initially their CEO, Christopher Williams, did solar work on the south side of Chicago. Once FEJA started, he partnered with us here at Elevate to roll out a workforce development program. And through that program, he was able to create a training arm of his organization where now he's able to hire members of the community, but most importantly, the trainers understand the needs of the community members. So when they go through the training, Chris and his instructors understand the plight of the community members and can customize the training and the job placement services and the case management work to the needs of the community. So we have a very exciting system where jobs have been created, businesses have been grown and new opportunities are starting to be seen on the south side of Chicago, west side of Chicago, and really across Illinois, which is extremely exciting.
Absolutely. At El Vejo, our education coordinator, Miguel Saucedo, works with community residents who are interested in the program. And upon entering, he supports them to think about what their life could be with these different kinds of career opportunities. And on top of that, they're getting the hard skills around how to install a solar panel. What does electrical wiring look like for that? What is the day-to-day role of an installer and a crew? And they're also working on things like how to prepare a resume, how to talk to companies that are hiring, how to interview, and other skills that are going to be extremely important for their futures. And many of these folks are recently incarcerated. They have difficulty getting jobs because of discrimination and bias against them in many other industries. And I think it's really special that this program, by law, requires that there be a focus on folks who are shut out of other opportunities, and that as we're creating new things, that we are specifically concentrating on the people who otherwise wouldn't be able to participate. And it's really incredible seeing community members at the graduation ceremony saying, hey, I'm already getting some job offers and I see a different pathway for myself.
Yeah. One of the things that is very exciting, speaking of the great work that El Vejo has done, is also the expanding the partnerships. Like we've talked about the community-based partnerships, but also the partnerships with local colleges and businesses. One of the ones that Miguel especially has worked on is a partnership with City College, which is really exciting. Through the partnership with the City College system, we've been able to combine continuous education with the FEJA dollars to create an environment where students are able to access the resources of the college, but also get the training that they need. So one of the things that we're really excited about and hope to expand on as these programs continue to grow are being able to partner with local colleges, community colleges, and universities to expand the programs a little broader across the state so that everyone has access. And thanks to the teams that worked on the FEJA legislation, one of the key things that's important to keep in mind is that all these programs are free to the participants. So a lot of times, as we know, oftentimes cost and transportation and access are barriers. And thanks to the partnerships that we've established, as well as the hard work to develop the programs, they're free to the participants, and in some cases even include stipends. But one question I had for you, Juliana, is around rural access to workforce development. A lot of our conversations we've had have focused on the city of Chicago or other large metropolitan areas. Do you have some thoughts around the rural access to clean energy programs and workforce development, and what seems to be working and where maybe we can continue to work?
Absolutely. So I would say that there is an explosion of development in rural areas in Illinois. You saw in some of the first program launches by the Illinois Power Agency that developers are really interested, and a lot of that development is happening in rural areas. And while the Future Energy Jobs Act programs has a statewide mandate, the funds for the programs were limited, and so you see really great workforce development happening in places like Peoria, where Frontline Environmental Justice community groups like Illinois People's Actions are working with the Department of Corrections and community colleges to make great things happen. But what we want to see is to have programs distributed statewide, and that's actually something that we're working on the Clean Energy Jobs Act right now, is to ensure that programs are spread out throughout the state and that the program benefits will be reaching every corner of Illinois, all the way down to the very tip of the state on the border of Kentucky, to the northwest, to further north in Illinois, and other places that would otherwise not really be the targets of priority for programs. And by mandating it by statute that these programs be statewide and that they get regional administration that's going to really tailor their needs to the specific potential trainees in their areas, we will see just so much more in terms of how deeply these programs are reaching the farthest corners of Illinois. And while there are some great labor programs that the IBEW is working on through a bunch of their locals. We just need more. We need more development. The development of the industry is going very quickly, and we need to see equal, if not greater, development of the depth of the kind of training opportunities and make sure that they're really reaching everyone.
You touched on a couple of points that are really interesting to elevate, especially as we look to kind of grow our programs in the workforce space as an implementer. One was around access to returning citizens and the ability of a returning citizen to get access to jobs and opportunity. And the other was around workforce development wraparound services. So I'm really interested in kind of getting your perspective as it relates to wraparound services, because one of the things that we really focused on was not just running people through a training program and then dropping them into the job market, but really trying to provide full service support. So everything from how you do your outreach to your recruiting to getting them into the facility and getting them comfortable to having tutoring and job placement and career placement. I think FEJA did a great job of providing us a launching pad for that. But from your perspective, how does CEJA address some of the additional needs around workforce development? And then if you can kind of make that connection with returning citizens, I know that's a group that we're very passionate about getting more services to as well.
Absolutely. The Clean Energy Jobs Act addresses the need for wraparound services by writing it into the law. It would authorize the creation of the Clean Jobs Workforce Hubs program that would create a network of distributed community-based organizations whose role would be to ensure that these services are being provided to trainees as they're moving through clean energy jobs-related training. And that includes things that, like some of the things that you mentioned, making sure that there's transportation support, making sure that they're getting other types of career support like math skills, resume work, interview skills. But it also includes the addition of new things that were lessons that were learned from the Future Energy Jobs Act program. For example, making sure that there's access to funding for childcare. When you have people who have children or parents and they're trying to complete the training program, not having access to childcare ends up being a big barrier. There are also things like access to managing the certification process. As we know, many of these roles are professionalized, and getting through the program is one thing, but what about when they go to sit for the test and then they go to get the certification? That sometimes incurs additional fees. And so we're really in the Clean Jobs Workforce Hub Network program tailoring the kinds of supports that people need and basing that on the lessons that communities have learned in the existing programs, which is incredibly important that these ideas are coming from trainees saying, this is something that I would need and that I'm looking for. And in particular, that's incredibly important for folks who are formerly incarcerated, who often have a more difficult time accessing social service benefits or other services that would maybe otherwise be accessible. And many times folks are also folks who are economically disadvantaged, and so they don't necessarily have the cash in hand to be paying for additional services or paying for entry into other services that the program really should be providing by mandate. And so it takes all of those lessons again and bakes them into the law and gives empowerment to the community groups who would be distributing these services to say, this is actually really important and this shouldn't be an afterthought, and this is essential to completion of programs and to ensuring that folks actually get into a career path and succeed in that career path once they're there.
Yeah, that's really exciting, because what we've seen in the FEJA program already is a very strong start. When you look at some of the workforce development programs that are already underway, our last class here in Chicago, we had 31 students in the class. And we were really excited about having 31, but like most classes, you usually expect some level of attrition. Did you know that out of the 31 students, most of which were returning citizens or foster care alumni, we had 30 students graduate from the class? So out of 31 students, we had 31. And the only one that didn't graduate was because of a personal emergency that came up during class. And that student's enrolled in the next session that's coming. So had it not been for that personal emergency, we would have had all 31 students start and finish the class. So one of the things that we're really excited about is that, to your point, Juliana, when you combine a strong training program with strong instruction that's based in the community, you find committed community members that are interested in taking that training, and then you provide the wraparound services, like you said. It's a recipe for success. You have students that are highly engaged, they're very excited, they actually show up to class early, they're participating in the tutoring session, they're at the job fair. One of the most exciting days to me for the class is the graduation day, when you see all the students that have put in 10 to 12 weeks of hard work get their diploma. But what's more exciting than the diploma is when you talk with them and they talk about the job that they have lined up once they've completed the class. So we have a system that's gone from strong policy to strong coursework to jobs, which is really exciting. Well, one of the reasons that I feel like we have had such strong participation, Juliana, as I mentioned, we had 30 of 31 students graduate, is really it comes down to one word, is community. We had a ton of really strong community partners. And what happens is when you combine strong community partners, partners like FEJA, partners like Safer Foundation, partners like Millennium Solar, Training Academy, when you combine all of these partners that work in the community day in and day out, that working with those partners to find the right students, to engage the students, to support them, what you have is a sense of family, a sense of camaraderie, a sense of caring. One of the students at the graduation that we had at one of our partners called Livewire, who hosted the training, said to me after the class, and he had recently just gotten out of prison, he came up to us and said, usually when you have a jobs training program, they just kind of run you through the program. No one really cares about you. They don't care about they don't care about your story. They don't care about your experiences. And what he said about our training program was that the instructors cared. They would come in early. They would stay late. The course facilitators cared about them. Whenever they had a question, they could pick up the phone and reach out to the course administrator. When they had questions, I know Miguel at FEJA was always available. They could call him up and say, hey, I need some assistance with this course module, and he would call them right back and meet with them. The job placement services, we had people that were working with each student individually on their resume, helping them with their interview skills. We had local pastors from Faith in Place that donated suits and dresses for the women so that they could be ready to interview. We had workforce partners that were willing to come in to the class and interview the students. We had partners that were highly engaged in making sure returning citizens not just found jobs, but retained those jobs. And when you have a situation where you have from front to back full community participation with the partners, with the legislators, with the communities, with the employers, then you have situations where you see results where 30 out of 31 students graduate, where you have 90% of the class gets jobs, where you have students referring their brother, their cousin, their aunt, their uncle to the training program. And it creates an engine where you're able to turn communities around and create opportunities. And that's really what we're excited about and what we hope to continue with the CEJA legislation.
And Delmar, there's a very good foundation for that. As you know, in creating CEJA, the Clean Energy Jobs Act, the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition really prioritized the mandate that was given by community groups to say, we should really be developing these policies based on what communities need from the beginning. And so the Clean Energy Jobs Act was formulated after a series of 67 community meetings throughout the state where local community members were at the meetings generating ideas, answering questions, deciding priorities for what they wanted to see. What were some of the gaps that they saw? What were some of the opportunities that they saw? And based on that, how could we really launch something even larger and grow them throughout the state? And so you saw leadership in Carbondale, talking to community members about how might these specific needs meet our desires here in Southern Illinois. How might that look different? You also saw folks in Clean Power Lake County up in Waukegan saying, we still have an active coal plant. We're really interested in a different kind of energy economy. These programs would really serve us well here, and if they address the needs of the community, that would be really transformative. You saw folks at Black-led organizations really holding the line about what it means to prioritize equity for communities that have seen disinvestment. People like Naomi Davis at Blacks and Green, like Cheryl Johnson at People for Community Recovery, really said it's incredibly important that we acknowledge the history here where communities have been excluded, sometimes systematically, from opportunity, and let's address that directly in the programs that we're creating. What about groups that focused on things like making sure transgender individuals were prioritized and youth? The kinds of people who historically really have not seen focus, attention, energy, development that we need to see in order for everybody to be included in a way that's truly equitable. This isn't just about equality, it's about equity. And so we, took that head on as a coalition, and I feel really proud that these policies came from community leaders, and that's why they're so good. The Clean Energy Jobs Act process was not typical. Normally, organizations that have an advocacy interest in an issue get together in a room and brainstorm themselves and say, we as the experts have the solutions here, and we will craft something and hope that that works, and use our experience as experts to establish these ideas and to get them passed into law and to hopefully create programs. The problem with that is that many times those organizations aren't really connected to the communities who are impacted the most by those policy decisions. And really, it's the expertise of communities who are living with these realities every day, who know what they need the most, coming together to create something different that builds really, really high quality programs. It's a very different approach to policymaking because it really centers the expertise where it lives in a distributed way throughout the state in communities that are impacted the most. And the Clean Energy Jobs Act process was unprecedented. It was one of the largest participatory policymaking exercises that has happened. And in Illinois, that is not typical for bills of this magnitude.
Yeah, one of the things I was really interested in learning some more about, Juliana, was the listening sessions. As we're doing our training, oftentimes, like I said, we have family members or other community members that hear about the training and they want to provide input or learn more. And I'm really interested in learning more about what can members of the communities expect from the listening sessions, and are there any more of them, or how can they get engaged so that they can continue to provide input into the legislation?
Absolutely, there will be more sessions. They're going to be deployed throughout the state. The Clean Jobs Coalition has a really great grassroots team that works together to think about the schedule for when these can happen. And we will be publishing the locations and dates on the Clean Jobs Coalition website. Community members are welcome and their ideas are welcome. And I think that that's the important part, is that information doesn't just sort of end at the listening sessions. It gets channeled back into the coalition process and we incorporate it. We address, this is a really good point. We need to be thinking about this here in whatever part the point was made about. And I think that's really important. A lot of times community members are asked for their quote unquote feedback, if you will, Delmar, but it doesn't actually mean anything substantive. Here it's actually substantive. We are looking to be responsive to the ideas that people who are most impacted have, and the policies we have now comes from a process that is grounded in those ideas.
One of the groups I'm really interested in talking about, we've talked a lot about the labor force, but what about the job owner? Let's say that you run a woman-owned business or a Latino-run business or an African-American-run business. What kind of opportunities are there with the Clean Jobs Act or Clean Energy Jobs Act to get engaged in the process and get training or skills, because often these jobs that are created are in very complex environments, often relationships are already established. So are there things that we can be doing better as implementers to engage job creators and contractors that are really interested in getting engaged?
Absolutely, that's an excellent question, Delmar. The Clean Energy Jobs Act expands upon a program that is being piloted right now that would support contractors in an incubation format to expand their knowledge, skills, and infrastructure and capacity to really take advantage of these new opportunities. Historically, what we've seen is that disadvantaged-owned businesses, such as Latinx-owned businesses, Black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and other kinds of firms, are also shut out of market opportunities and need, on a number of levels, additional support. Things like access to low-cost capital, very difficult to get. Things like navigating the complex registration system to access solar incentives or to access energy efficiency contracting opportunities. The Clean Energy Jobs Act would provide for a network of community organizations that would support these businesses alongside the job training locations to get access to those different business functions that are really difficult to develop just for a mom and pop contractor or for a small business that is one person, two-person shop. You know, these folks are really willing, excited, and would like to take advantage of the opportunities, but they need that support. And so we are hoping to build upon the pilot program success here and make that program statewide so that we can ensure that we have a diversity of contractors really doing the work, and that community members are not only going into the jobs, but are creating jobs for themselves and for their communities as well.
Awesome.
Delmar, I was wondering, because Elevate Energy has been taking a really wonderful leadership role in facilitating the existing contractor incubator pilot program, could you tell me about one of the businesses that you've worked with so far, and what has the process been like?
Oh, actually, I'll do you one better and tell you about several businesses in the program. As you mentioned, the Contractor Incubator Program is focused on ensuring underserved business owners have access to the projects. Oftentimes, when a contractor is interested in getting into the clean energy economy, figuring out where to go, how to tap into the energy programs, getting access, getting your business on the approved vendor list, if you will, can be a challenge. So the Contractor Incubator Program was established to help businesses that are often underserved not only meet those barriers, but then to excel. So through a series of cohort meetings as well as one-on-ones, we have recently completed a cohort of 20 contractors through a program with ComEd to get those contractors into what they call their service provider network. And part of the program, one of the things we did early on was to provide them help with their business plans. So what is your growth plan for your business? What areas do you want to get into? A lot of conversation around FEJA has very much focused on solar. But as you know, there's a large focus on energy efficiency as well, and that's often where underserved businesses are really interested in working. And so one of the things we work with them on is what areas of energy efficiency are you interested in? What skill sets do you have? One of the major successes of the program, once again, just highlighting some of them, are helping businesses get their M, W, and DBE certification, which enables them to be recognized as a woman-owned business, a diverse business, or a minority-owned business. And with that certification, they're then able to access the job opportunities or the project opportunities within the utilities and other businesses that are looking for work. One of the big successes that we had was the majority of the contractors that went through the program that weren't ComEd service providers are now either well on their way or already service providers. And so what that means in real world opportunities is they've gone from knowing and hearing about programs to actually being able to work on energy efficiency jobs in communities across the ComEd service territory, which is Northern Illinois. So it wasn't just kind of one business that did this. We actually had the majority of the businesses that were part of the cohort are now working toward their MWBE certification, and most of them have also attained some level of status as a service provider and are working closely with ComEd and several of their implementation partners on their first projects as energy efficiency service providers. So there's a clear pathway from, once again, knowing about opportunities to actually being a part of the opportunity. And because I'm not comfortable with them just working on projects, the thing that we want next is for these businesses to be tier 1 providers or primes on jobs in the future. So the conversation is transitioned, or we want to transition the conversation from let's get an opportunity to can we work with the business, work with ComEd, work with other partners to help them grow their business, hire more employees, and eventually over time become primes on the project so they can then create jobs for the people that are coming through the labor force component of the training project. So it creates this engine of job creation within the community that's really exciting.
That's extremely exciting. It's sort of thinking about the job training programs as career builders. This is also a way that we are building careers, right? We're building career providers, and it's a long-term process, and it really requires that kind of support for these companies to manage navigating the complex registration process to become a service provider. In Illinois, the energy efficiency programs we have are provided through our utilities, and so it really requires these companies to have knowledge about how they even go to find out where the opportunities are. How do they make sure that they're positioned and ready when the opportunities come down the pipeline, especially for those businesses that want to do work in their own community. It's really important to be well positioned, to know what's happening and to already be registered and to have crews at the ready, and that's really difficult without additional support. And I think the exciting part about the Clean Energy Jobs Act is we're taking these lessons from the program here, and communities are saying, we need this everywhere. And this is a program that will now be statewide and that will really focus on how do we ensure that you have this kind of support throughout the state so that these small companies can really transform their opportunities and provide career opportunities for their fellow community members where they are.
So one of the things that really has me excited, Juliana, as we're talking about this, is an anecdote from Percy Harrison. And he runs Harrison Contractors. And through the incubator, one of the quotes that he had to us was around his excitement that money has been invested to assist businesses of color and provide them access to opportunities. And from that investment, as I mentioned, he now has access to become a service provider. He has access to jobs or projects that he did not have access to. And through those jobs and opportunities, he's now positioning his business so that it can grow and hire in the community. And he is interested in hiring members of the communities that he does work in. So once again, through Harrison Contractors, you can see front on how he is able to make his business better, do future business planning, access to relationships that lead to new projects, and from those projects, hire more people that grow his business. We have an engine for success. And as you've mentioned, I'm really excited that CEJA is positioning additional assistance for businesses like Percy's so that instead of having a cohort of 20, we can do cohorts that are larger, that have a larger geographic reach so that we can have more jobs created across the state. It's really exciting. So one of the reasons I really feel like there's a sense of urgency as it relates to job creation is the opportunity. When you look across the Midwest, clean energy jobs are growing at 5 times the rate of other jobs across the region. And what we have in Illinois especially is a workforce that is primed and ready for this opportunity. Earlier, Juliana, you and I talked about the fact that there are needs in both urban and rural areas. When you look at the city of Chicago in an urban areas, you see oftentimes you have communities that are severely underutilized. And what we are trying to do as part of FEJA and hopefully in the future CEJA is to bring the clean energy economy into these communities so that people can engage in the clean energy economy so that they're able to sustain their families, improve their communities, and have access to these opportunities. In the rural environments, you see a burning desire to learn more about solar and how projects like community solar projects can help provide energy and reduce energy costs to farms, to community co-ops, to community organizations. And so once again, very similar to the urban areas, there is a desire to create jobs. One of the things I was really interested in, as you and I have talked in the past, is as we start to decrease the number of coal power plants really across the nation, what kind of job opportunities does that create for folks that are interested in the clean energy jobs? And does CEJA take into account the needs of communities that have been impacted by, say, a plant closing or a plant maybe relocating or the loss of kind of a fossil fuel job?
Absolutely, Delmar. That's a great question. Communities throughout the state have been impacted by the energy economy in a number of different ways. And there are 2 different kinds of urgency. There's sort of the urgency of the transition that's happening, and the urgency is to make sure that that transition is a just transition, that the communities that are impacted by facilities that are closing or transitioning, the things that they're doing, and that they get a decision-making stake in this process. So those communities are looking to expand job opportunities. They're also looking to make sure that the programs really are tailored to their needs there. And one thing that's really important is that the Clean Energy Jobs Act includes a suite of policies and programs specifically for those communities, and it names displaced fossil fuel workers as a priority group for the contractor incubators and for the Clean Jobs Workforce Hubs. So there's an acknowledgement. You have some folks transitioning out of old kinds of jobs, and they're looking for really high quality opportunities. Those folks should be supported and prioritized, and those communities should also be supported and prioritized to ensure that they are getting access to these opportunities and that they have access to economic well-being that is merited and that takes into account the kinds of transitions that they're experiencing. And the only way that that can happen is if those communities get to have a say and say, these are the programs we want and this is what we need here. And the Clean Energy Jobs Act does the work of engaging those community members and saying, these are the programs that folks have asked for. Now, that's extremely exciting, and I think, as we know, the Future Energy Jobs Act created many opportunities throughout the state and is really spurring solar and energy efficiency development. If we don't do something to ensure that we are really deeply reaching for what communities are asking for, that development will keep moving and communities will get some of the opportunity, but we want to really maximize the access that they will have. And so, it's a really exciting time, I think, because it's urgency, but there's also excitement there of what the opportunity is going to mean. And another thing I wanted to know is that the Clean Energy Jobs Act also develops new programs around transportation electrification and the benefits of electrifying other sectors. The Future Energy Jobs Act just touched the energy sector. Now we're also talking transportation. So you have a whole other suite of potential jobs that are going to be emerging. And, if we don't address that now, those jobs will be created and the communities that have been historically left behind won't have access. And that includes communities where you have decarbonization, you have transition needs, and communities in urban and rural areas that have historically been shut out. And so this is really about what does it mean for those communities to really have a stake in the future and to be able to exert their decision making to say this is what we deserve and this is what we will build. We will invite the industries in the way that we would like into our communities and then jointly create new opportunities in the energy economy.
So Juliana, one of the programs that we're really excited about is the Illinois Solar for All program. It provides low cost or free solar to communities that oftentimes are underserved or don't have access to solar and solar programs. And one of the really good things about the Future Energy Jobs Act legislation is that the Illinois Solar for All program combines both workforce participation, job creation, and access to solar into one program so that everyone across the state has access to get solar panels on their roof, or in communities maybe where getting rooftop solar is not an option, it provides a means to get solar as a community solar program where community members can work together to develop or work with developers to create a community solar project. As we look at the Clean Energy Jobs Act, we've seen a lot of excitement around this program as we're talking to people about getting solar that weren't even considering it beforehand. Is the Clean Energy Jobs Act going to kind of provide additional incentives, or what is the thought process about this exciting new program into the future?
Delmar, the Illinois Solar for All program is very exciting indeed, and we have just seen it begin to launch. And so, there's so much more to come in terms of the benefits it's going to bring to communities. Again, the program focuses really on opportunities for economically disadvantaged communities and environmental justice communities. And so it has lots of different program types that are specifically about how do we bring access to the energy saving benefits, the pollution reduction benefits, the public health promoting benefits of solar energy in a way that's going to be accessible to community members who, again, would not be able to access these opportunities otherwise. The Clean Energy Jobs Act extends the Illinois Solar for All program, gives it extra money to do more good things, and it also creates a couple of new energy sovereignty opportunities for community members. And this really is responsive to going back to what we were talking about before, community members wanting to access the benefits of programs, but also wanting a stake in owning some of the systems, getting some of the monetary benefits, building some wealth. And that's really unprecedented for economically disadvantaged community members, where you are normally on the recipient end of programs, to be able to say, hey, I have a stake in this project, and to have that be a monetary stake is extremely important. And so that's a really exciting addition to the program that comes from community members doing really exciting things. You have Reverend Tony Pierce at Illinois People's Action in Peoria working with community members to say, we want to build some energy sovereignty here. We want to own parts of systems. How do we use that as a way to confer wealth opportunities to communities that normally don't have any access, but who are really looking to be driving and on the front edge of creating these projects? The program is also going to be extremely important for places like Little Village, where you have huge numbers of renters who simply don't have access to property rights and would really like to say, hey, I support clean energy. I think this is the kind of energy that we should have. I want to see pollution reduction. I'm in a community where we've been impacted by pollution and are still being impacted by pollution. What can we do to advance clean energy and to access it ourselves? And that's incredibly important. And in these many different ways, the program really addresses lots of different kinds of formats of solar that communities might want. And it's frankly thrilling that it's going to be up and running, and the Clean Energy Jobs Act is really going to give it another boost.
It's also really exciting to me, as someone who personally grew up in a rural area, to see a program like this that can both help in an urban environment, but also for rural users in underserved communities to have access to solar panels and community solar is really exciting. So it's a really exciting day in Illinois when you have programs that are really designed to not just help specific groups, but is really focused on helping provide economic benefit to everyone across the state. And that's where I get excited about Illinois Solar for All.
To find out more about the Clean Energy Jobs Act and the Future Energy Jobs Act, as well as the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition, visit ilcleanjobs.org. There on the website, you can learn about events that are happening near you, what the policy development looks like, and get involved. You can also find out how to contact your legislators, contact the governor, talk to local leaders to indicate we support this kind of programming in Illinois, and we would really like to see this act passed.